call to order our regular meeting of the West Valley City Council. We note that all council members are present. We'll begin by turning to Councilman Don Christensen for our opening ceremony.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, this last couple of weeks, we've probably all been glued to the Weather Channel or some similar news organization trying to see just what's going on in the rest of the United States, and seeing how many communities have come together and formed alliances caused by the tremendous disasters that they've been undergoing. And as I look back at that, and then yesterday, watching all of the coverage of different commemorative events of 16 years ago, I think that one of the things that really, if we listen to it and live by it, really brings our nation together is what we're going to do tonight as the opening ceremony. And that is, we'll all join in pledging allegiance to the flag of our country. So if you'll stand and join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think next on our agenda we'll go to the approval of the minutes. We have our minutes of September 5th to the council.
Mayor, I move for approval of the September 5th, 2017 minutes.
Second.
Properly before us, any discussion? No comments? Then all in favor of approving the minutes of September 5th, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Passes unanimously. The minutes are approved. Next we go to our Employee of the Month Award. And it is Councilman Lars Nordfeldt who will take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This month's Employee of the Month is Jenny Harward. Jenny, could you please stand so you can be recognized as I read your nomination? Thank you. This is a nomination from Aaron Krim. Jenny serves in the Public Relations Neighborhood Service Department. Jenny is an outstanding West Valley City employee and is an example to all of her colleagues. Every day she is pulled in many directions, helping employees and offices throughout the city with special projects and unexpected issues. When she is asked to help with a code enforcement question, a homeless resource issue, a neighborhood watch project, or an EAC assignment, she does it with a smile. Many of the projects she is asked to help with are above and beyond her scope of responsibility, yet she willingly steps in and gets things taken care of. She is also a wealth of knowledge. Ask Jenny a question about the city, and if she doesn't know the answer, she knows someone who does. In addition to being a hard worker, Jenny is a wonderful colleague and friend. She's always happy, always smiling, and with her infectious laugh is an absolute pleasure to work with. Long hours, weekend projects, and outdoor events in the sweltering sun are much more bearable when Jenny is around to help and make everyone laugh. She always has a positive attitude, and whether it's a city employee or a neighborhood watch group, people love working with her. Jenny is a fantastic West Valley City employee, and I would be surprised to find anyone in or outside of City Hall who doesn't agree. Congratulations, Jenny.
We're going to get you up.
Stay here so people behind can get pictures. before you sit down, will you take a second to give us a little speech? Tell us who's here to support you, maybe?
We got my dad, my friend Debbie, my girlfriend Shayla, my mom, my staff, well not my staff, but Tony and his wife Stephanie and his kids.
You are welcome to stay for our meeting, but I recommend that you go out and celebrate. We won't miss you.
Thank you very much. Next, we come to our comment period. This is where we have people come on any issue that they desire to take comments up to 5 minutes. And hopefully no one will take more than that, but we have several who are signed up. We'll begin with Mark Chadwick. This is a presentation time, not really question and answer, although council members may respond afterwards.
All right. I guess I'll lean down to speak to this.
Yeah.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Mayor and council members and city officials and managers. Just to be quick, since I only have 5 minutes, I'll just run through this. I provided a presentation that shows about what I'm here for. This is about an intersection at 3500 South and Mary Lane. What I'm here to basically put on your radar. I'm not sure what, if anything, can be done. And that's why I'm coming to you guys to get more knowledge and education. This is the first time for me in this setting. So let's roll through it. I've got 5 minutes, let's go. So the issue is that the building and structure that is just to the east of Mary Lane is blocking the vision for cars trying to get onto 35th South, whether you're turning left or right. It is a high risk and a safety issue for those who use this area. In fact, it's getting to the point, as people have talked to me about it, that they either use the road to the east or the road to the west to avoid this because it's such a risk. But what can be done about that? I know that there are plans for Hunter Town Center, and I know that there's and it's wonderful, and this is amazing plans, and I know that this is not necessarily in the scope of that plan. It doesn't really go this far east, but it's right there. And there's a sidewalk that is lacking, and there's a safety issue that needs to be addressed about it. So, if you scroll, there's views. I provided what those views look like. Thank you, Google Maps. That gives you these kind of details. But here's what the new development is, and that's why I decided to come here. I saw some new construction on the structure, and I thought that this was being addressed, that they're actually going to pull the building back, but it was actually they're stripping everything down. They're making it look great, which is nice, and I'm all for small business. I really want this business to keep going and to succeed. I don't want this to hurt any of those involved and those who enjoy the services that this building provides. But what they did do is they structured it so that if a car were to hit that building, it were to lower the risk of that car doing maximum damage to the building, where they put a structural concrete wall right next to 35th South. And so then they're making it look better, which is great. But it doesn't resolve the issue of the safety concern of cars that need to pull out onto 35th, and also for people that want to traverse or walk or bike on that section on the north end, or the north end of 35th South. So I did approach UDOT since it is a state road, and I did ask for crash data. I know that there was a crash there just yesterday. We are talking 24 hours ago. A car accident was there. I know there was one about a week or two ago. There is constant crashes happening at this intersection. So here I am wondering where to go from here. So I'm not one to come and pitch a bunch of problems without thinking about what can be done and offer some kind of solutions. What I did throw out there is, as a city, we could fund a relocation and demolish the buildings that are impacting 35th South, and also reduce the risk of the expansion that's eventually going to happen on 35th South, for whether it be Mountain View Corridor or for the Hunter Town Center. Options would be to help fund and relocate those buildings so that those business and small businesses can continue and keep moving forward and resolve that risk of not being able to see. Other solutions would be a traffic light. The other one would be to lower the speed limit. That would reduce the risk of injury or death happening on that intersection. What have I done? So far I've come here to talk to you guys, get to know you. My name is Mark Chadwick, nice to meet you all. And basically get some feedback on where to go from here. I think that's all the time I really plan on taking. And again, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Next we have Sandy Mejia. No? Oh, by the way, if you're here for the public comment period on one of the items on our agenda, we'll have that later.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's fine. It often gets confused, and I should have mentioned that here. So if you hear about the, let's see, we have a couple of public hearings, one for the JAG grant and one for the general plan change on 2700 West. And then the alcohol establishment spacing. So if you're here for one of those three, then we'll get to you and we'll open that up later.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Next then, Marlo Springer.
Good evening. I just have two items that have been building on my concern level lately. The first is the amount of red light running that I see. And it's not just a problem here in West Valley City, I'm sure it's everywhere. But I live here in West Valley City, so. And I know some months back in one of the meetings with the police chief, he made an indication that there might be a possibility of putting up some red light cameras, maybe 10 or 12 camera bodies and only 5 or 6 cameras, and move those around so people don't know which actually have cameras in them. But I think we need to do something about that. It's not only people going straight through red lights, but people not stopping when they're turning at red lights or at stop signs. And it's really dangerous, not only for drivers, but also for pedestrians. So that's something that I think we need to put a little more effort into and see if we can either educate people, put up larger signs saying, this is a stop sign, you are supposed to stop, something. The second is just recently, I've been thinking about the recycling program that the city has. And to me, it seems like it's a huge tax burden for us as residents with really not too much benefit. It might be a feel-good program, but I think it's extremely costly. And the specific items, how specific things need to be is what can go in the can, what can't. It seems just to be a large headache, and I'm guessing as a city we're probably losing money on that, and I think our resources can be used better elsewhere. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Mike Markham.
Okay, Mike Markham, 3008 Alice Circle. Hey, I want to tell you guys, you made me proud at study meeting when you actually started talking about parking, increasing the parking that has to be in new developments and so forth. I like the plan on Redwood Road where it's 4.5 cars per unit. I think we need to look at that. There's another new unit coming up today or tonight that you're going to talk about that we need to address the parking issues on, because parking has become a big issue. I came home the other night late, came up 2700 past the trailer park down by the police station. I don't know how some of those cars even get out in the morning because they're packed in there so tight. I don't know how they can back up and pull forward or pull forward and back out. I don't know how they do it. Some of these places, there's utility trailers lined up loaded with recycling that may sit there for several days. But we need to start addressing some of this, and I know they're public streets, we can't. But there are also laws and ordinances, or whatever you want to call it, that we can enforce on public streets, because you have to know the answers to them when you get your driver's license about how far you park from an intersection or how far you park from a driver's license or from a driveway. I think if we started ticketing people, not just patting them on the back, you hit them in the pocketbook and they'll start to learn. You know, this feel-good thing that we have of patting them on the back and saying you really shouldn't do this, we've done that long enough. So we need to start ticketing people if they're parked too close to the intersection or they're parked too close to a driveway, even if it's their own driveway. There's that little intersection on King Arthur and Alice where there's times you go to pull out there and you can't see either way. So, you know, we need to start ticketing people. We need to put, like I've always said, we need to put a bite in the law, not just a feel-good. But something else I wanted to bring up quick, and I'll leave you alone, is on this, all these parking issues when we demand more parking units per unit. I think that should go for everybody, not just the public. I mean everybody that wants the development or everybody that wants a development in Fairborn Station. 1.5 don't cut it. You know, and then I'm told, well, we got the parking structure. I don't think I should have to use or wherever tax dollars come from to fund parking for ICO. Okay, there might be a big developer and everything, but everybody, even the city, will have to go by the same number of parking stalls per unit. Okay, I think everybody plays on the same ball team here. I hope that you know, I don't care who you are, you go by the same rule. We don't adjust the rules for what we want, what for the public. But I think parking has been an issue. There was 2 guys here last week complaining about parking. So I'm glad to feel I'm not the only one that sees it to be a problem. But you know what, you brought up the trailer park on 3100. I don't know how they get in and out of there. You know, and I guess we can't do anything about it. Put a bicycle lane there and fix it so they can't park there. I don't know. But they'll find some place to park. So, thanks. But like I said, I at least like the discussion that was going on today in study meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Just general? Okay. Then to our acting city manager, Nicole Cottle. Any comments?
Sure, Mayor. I'll just make one comment in particular to Mr. Chadwick's request here, and first say I think that we'd love to have public comment, so welcome to the City Council meeting, and thank you for the nice presentation and all of the information. As you know, that is a state road. As you've learned, that's a state road, and we have worked closely as a staff and at the direction of our City Council with UDOT for many years to try to facilitate solutions there. Council, I will ask our staff to approach UDOT again, and I will also ask our economic development staff to take a look at that particular site as well as the Hunsaker Meat site again to see if there's some economic development assistance that we can provide to those small businesses there as well, and we'll report back to you as a council and offer to Mr. Chadwick to please just stay in touch with us as a city, and we'll bring you up to date as well.
Okay, comments from the council?
Mayor?
Yes.
I just might say with Mr. Chadwick's presentation, I know that we have taken our dog over there several times over the years we lived here to have our dog groomed, and so we're very familiar with that building, and it was a problem even before this started to happen, this street construction started, and so it's always been a problem, especially no sidewalk and those types of issues. So yeah, I would welcome some solutions or some suggestions there.
Then I would add one more comment on the red light cameras. Currently, we're not allowed to use those in Utah. Legislature prohibited the use of those, and so they're not immediately pending, although I would sure like it if our staff would lobby the legislature to change that. And yes, I'll help on that one, because I agree it is becoming an increasing problem, and it's becoming quite dangerous, and Boy, and it's not just in West Valley, but I think across the state of Utah. Downtown I had a near miss. Not as near as the one next to me, but a guy ran a red light just right in the middle of it after cars were going through. So, but this problem is growing, and so we will take a look at that. And I don't know how much success we'll have, but we'll pursue it. With that then, see no further comments, we'll go now to item 8 on our agenda. This will be our application for a Justice Assistance Grant, or JAG grant, we often refer to it as. And this will provide a grant amount of just under $100,000, $97,977. And this will fund our body-worn camera storage and licensing fees. This will be over a 3-year period. We have gotten these often in the past, and that is the purpose of this particular one. With that introduction then, and this will also tie in with our resolution 17-145. So for this grant. So with that introduction then, I'll open it to any public comment. Is there anyone here who is desirous of speaking to this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. We'll bring it back to the council for consideration of resolution 17-145.
Mayor, I move for approval of resolution 17-145.
Second.
Properly before us. Any further discussion? For those of you here, understand that these are items that we discussed last week in our study meeting. So if we don't ask a lot of questions, we probably got them all answered. And this one is actually fairly routine. We've done this a number of years. I don't know how many times the city has gotten it, but it's one that's been around a long time. With that then, as required by state law, we will turn to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Vincent,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hume, Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Norfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we have our application GPZ-1-2017, filed by Bird Reynolds Construction, a general plan change from non-retail commercial to medium-density residential. And this is on, and also a zone change from agriculture to multiple unit dwelling. This is at 4530 South, 2700 West. Here we will be considering several things: the general plan change, which is ordinance 17-31, the ordinance 17-32, this is a change of zone, agriculture to multiple unit residential dwelling, and resolution 17-146, a development agreement. We'll deal with those separately, but you are welcome to speak on any of those in conjunction with this discussion. So we have that, and it's 15.16 acres. They're going to have about 9.5 units per acre. There are a lot of issues with this. There will be 2 exits onto 2700 West, entrance exits, none into the subdivisions, especially with that little, I don't know, change in altitude there that stands. There will be no roads going up into any of the other areas. With that introduction generally, then we will open it for public comment. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Several, so maybe we'll just start right over here. And be sure and state your name, and generally we have you give some contact information, like an address.
Happy to
for our
do that,
city
Mr.
recorder.
Mayor and city council members and staff. My name's Eric Bishop from 44 Wanderwood Way in Sandy, and I've left my other contact information on the pad back here. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. I wanted to just give you a little bit of background history. Some of you are aware of this property and some of you aren't. And I'm speaking in behalf of the property owners that currently own this piece and are under contract with Mr. Reynolds. In about the year 2006, UDOT was having problems funding the acquisition of the Mountain View Transportation Corridor, and contacted us and the landowners who owned other parcels in West Valley located in the path of the Mountain View Transportation Corridor. Because of their limited funds at that time, we agreed to trade them and traded into this parcel of property. At that time, the master plan for the property was office, medical, or medium density residential, which was 12 units or less per acre. And as you know, that was changed within the recent years with the rezone that occurred citywide and the remaining property that hadn't been developed. During the past, nearly 10 years or so, we've worked with the Economic Development Department here in the city, as well as the Planning Department, trying to find the right solution for this property. Originally, we spent all of our time and energy focused on office and medical type uses. And after a few years of working with the staff and EDC Utah and other brokers, we just didn't come up with any solution, and there just wasn't any demand for office or medical in this area, unfortunately. So in more recent years, we've tried to spend most of our efforts with the staff trying to define perhaps a multi-family residential type use of easily below 12 units per acre or less. We've been talking with staff trying to identify premier builders and developers. And a couple of years ago, Mr. Reynolds' name and his company came up, and so we started visiting some of his sites and locations and have been working with him off and on for the last couple of years. Earlier this year, we entered into a contract with Mr. Reynolds for the uses that he's proposing to tonight. The thing that the staff was primarily concerned with, and we feel like we found as we contacted Mr. Reynolds and looked at his projects, was not only excellent design product, but also a quality builder that had an excellent reputation here in the valley. And we feel like all of those things were met as we have gone out and contacted him. So really our efforts have been to try and match the needs that have been communicated to us by staff with a developer that has that reputation and experience. So with that little background on the property, which we thought would be important for you to know, of course we strongly recommend and encourage you to approve the application that's before you this evening. Any questions? At least. Great. Well, thank you so very much. Appreciate your help.
Thank you. And there was another gentleman here somewhere that... Anyone else? Sure, come forward.
Good evening. I'm Brad Reynolds. I got to tell you, Mayor, first you mentioned Burt Reynolds, and I was flattered when you mentioned Burt Reynolds. So I'm not sure Burt Reynolds would be flattered as I was, but I do appreciate that.
Oh, you remind me a lot.
But
So good looking.
I'm happy to be here with you this evening, and I appreciate the time that you're taking to do this. As I mentioned, I am the proposed developer of the new project there on 2700 West. Just to give you a little background of us, we have been in business for over 30 years, and primarily we have been a custom home builder. And we build a lot of the large homes in Holiday and some in the avenues and along the foothills there. And here probably about 11 or 12 years ago, a number of people came to us and said, oh, we wish you were doing something that was a little more affordable. We'd like to downsize and move out of our home, and we're tired of taking care of our yards. And so we started to look a little bit into the townhome market where they could still own their units, but the yards and maintenance would be taken care of, and it would definitely be a downsize from what they've been using. And it would also serve as a little more of an affordable product for young professionals and newly married and young families. And so we looked into that and started our first development here probably about 11 or 12 years ago. And what we did is we took the same quality that we had on our large custom homes and tried to have our subcontractors the same in certain areas for paint and finish and our same architecture, just downsized, and it went over extremely well. And all of the products that, and all the different developments that we've been doing the last 10, 11 years have all sold out in record time. In fact, even in Riverton, who, as you know, have been very cautious not to let any kind of higher density products go in right around the city, and there for quite some time they only allowed up to a half-acre lots. And Mayor Bill Applegarth came to us and said, because we'd done a development right on the border of South Jordan and Riverton City, and he said, us as a council, we went by your product and we're so impressed, and particularly we see the quality of people that are living in these projects. We've got school teachers, we've got policemen, we've got young families, professionals, and we also have a lot of empty nesters, those that are 55 and older. He says, why don't you come to Riverton and help us with an RDA project? And we went ahead and did that. And if you're familiar with Riverton City Hall, if you look just directly to the north, there's about 120 of these very same units that we're proposing that the mayor requested and asked if we'd come and help him with. And so we feel very good about our product. And just to give you a real quick briefing on what they are is most all the units have vaulted ceilings. Every unit comes with granite countertops, two-tone paint. We have a lot of the main areas on the main floor will be tile or a vinyl wood flooring, which has become real popular. Everything is two-tone paint with a larger molding package. Every master bedroom has its own shower as well as a jacuzzi tub and a large walk-in closet. And we've tried to, on the exterior, give it a little more pizzazz than your typical townhome. Every unit has a double car garage to help with parking. All the driveways on the front load garages that we've proposed are all 20 feet driveways where additional parking could be there. And we certainly look at the site and would like to add some additional parking. And I know that from what I've heard, you had a work session this past week and you expressed some concerns on various things, and we'd certainly like to do all we can to try and address those concerns and do our best to try and make sure those aren't an issue for the project. Are there any questions, or are there some of those concerns that I might be able to address?
I guess one of the main concerns is the parking. On some of the pictures you've got of a development you've already completed, behind you've got a picture of the garage, and then across the street you've got some on-street parking. In this plan, I don't see any spaces for on-street pocket parking. So my question would be, as the application is today, I wouldn't be in favor of passing it, but I would probably be in favor of continuing it and working with parking and different things. I think, excuse me, for the number of units, there's just not enough parking, and we have such a problem with on-street parking and from developments like this that spill out into the community. So
I appreciate your concern, and I know in many instances parking is an issue, and I know it was brought up earlier tonight by somebody making public comment there. And I think definitely there are areas in different places there where we could add parking. I know that was one of the staff recommendations too, that we told them that we would do, is that we need to add some additional parking. And also, please keep in mind that everything is a double-car garage, and with most of those driveways, they're at least 20 feet long, and so you could put even a couple more cars in those. But something else that we could do is there's a possibility of some of those rear load, we put those on as per staff recommendation to add a little diversity to the look. And they're quite attractive, and that way as you come into certain areas of the project, you see the front doors and not a garage. So we tried to diversify the product, and there's some pros and cons. Obviously you don't have your individual driveway, but we have a minimum of 32 to 34 feet between any of those rear load garages. And I'm certain we could come up in certain areas and come up with parking. But if it's the city council's opinion that we need to do all front load garages, we could certainly go back and revisit the site plan and try and do that. But there's no question that we could come up with some more parking.
Well, and I guess my issue, even with a 20-foot driveway, I couldn't move into here because of my truck. It probably doesn't fit, it's 23 and a half feet long, so it doesn't fit in the garage, and it wouldn't fit in the in the driveway. So, I mean, there are people that have different needs, and so they'd be parking on the street. And so that's an issue, and I think I'm the only one up here that has one that long, but it's still.
That is long, because Suburbans are like 18 or 19 feet, so you've got a long truck.
It's a long bit forward. So, but, you know, they need to be accommodated.
Sure.
And so, because we are in Utah, and people like their trucks.
Yes.
But we do just have so many people, we're just still a car community. So even with, I mean, it's an inconvenience, and people just won't park in their driveway with cars in their garage. It's just a matter of fact. So if there's not another parking area, then you end up with all the on-street parking, and it just becomes an eyesore. And we've just watched it in too many other instances happen.
You know, when we started looking at all the empty pieces of property throughout the city a couple of years ago, trying to decide how to grow the remaining portions of the city, the two things we identified that we didn't have. One was high-end housing, the other was active senior housing. And so when we rezoned this a while ago, it was with the intent that it was going to be an active senior community. Obviously that didn't go through, and so I guess my question would be, I mean, I'm all for higher quality, bigger units. I've fought for those for the whole time I've been on the city council. My question would be, as far as serving the active adult community or senior community, how many of these units would actually have main floor master bedrooms?
That's a good question. On most of our projects, we've tried to incorporate a certain amount, depending on the location of main floor masters. On this particular project, there would be 22 main floor master bedroom units.
And there's a total of how many units?
There's a total of 149. With that, any other concerns?
No, I just, like I say, those were the two products that we identified that we didn't have enough of. We have a lot of, and the other thing we wanted was ownership, not rentals.
Right.
And so I think you identified some of the issues that we're concerned with, and that's the quality and the home ownership side of that, which I'm grateful that you've done that. But I'm not so sure we've met the criteria for the active senior portions.
Well, what we have found in other projects, and that's why we've tried to do a mixture, is typically we have done and been familiar with some projects that have been all 55 and older, and sometimes there hasn't been enough demand in that particular area to fill the whole project with main floor master bedrooms. And that's why we've tried to reach out with some marketing and try and figure what percentage of these units would be best suited for 55 and older. And that's kind of the equation that we came up with, that particular amount would probably be best suited for that. Now, to be honest with you, that's our higher priced units, and so we typically have a little larger profit. But so from a developer standpoint, I wish they could all be that way, but we would not be able to sell them, at least in our mind and based upon marketing, if we had a whole 140 main floor master bedrooms.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns that?
Just to follow up on the parking issue then, you feel there are some ways that you could resolve that issue?
Yes, definitely there are. I mean, one would be to go back and try, as I mentioned earlier, change the unit type so we have driveways and maybe can accommodate a little more parking that way, but we do have quite a bit of space behind the rear load. There's undoubtedly between some of the buildings and some of those areas where we could do a little carve-outs and do 2 or 3 parking stalls, you know, throughout the project. And definitely get more parking that way. And so we feel confident of that. The other thing we could do is we could eliminate the clubhouse and the pool and put in just another amenity. I know one concern that somebody expressed is that you've had some issues with HOAs being able to take care of the streets and maintain the HOAs. And we could come in, we'd have to see how it works and revisit the site plan, and come in with a public street, widening that, but it would undoubtedly, and we'd probably still lose some units, we'd probably have to change the clubhouse and pool and just do another amenity. But in doing so, we could lower the HOA fees. We wouldn't have to deal with the HOA maintaining the street, so that the council would not be worried down the road there's enough money to maintain those streets. But I do have to tell you, when we have a larger townhome project like this, typically the funding of those streets in those areas has not been an issue. Typically, if we have a smaller 20, 30, or 40 unit, sometimes I've seen some of those with issues, but that's just based upon our experience.
Your 2 projects that you mentioned, one in Riverton, one in South Jordan, what has been the experience there with parking and the number of spaces per unit?
We've had the same 2-car garages that we have here. We've had the front load driveways. We have come in and done the carve-outs like I just suggested that we could do here on this site plan. And to my knowledge, it has not been an issue. So I think we definitely need to do some carve-outs, and based upon council's recommendation or approval, we'd be happy to follow the staff's recommendation and add parking stalls and do a number of carve-outs throughout that subdivision, if that's something that the city council would feel okay about.
Would those carve-outs be close to the units, in other words?
They would,
Yeah.
they would. They'd have to be kind of in between the buildings, out off the curb, where we have space there. We just have to come in and do 2 or 3 parking stalls periodically throughout the whole development.
So on the picture I'm looking at here of the development we've already done, it looks like 5 garage doors, and then right across is 8 parking stalls. So not just little 2s and 3s, but a substantial number to kind of equal the number of garages. So I think that's more what we're looking at than 2s and 3s.
Well, and ideally from us, if you can still get the same amount you're adding, it's always nicer to have them closer to the units so they can use those for guest parking instead of having a chunk of 8 or 10 a little ways away. But I think we'd look for ways wherever we can put them to make sure we add enough parking. And based upon council and staff, we would certainly do all we can to meet what you suggest and what you think we need to add. But it's always been our goal, and we can't always do it, but to provide enough parking so that everybody that owns a unit in there has some visitor parking fairly close to their unit.
Well, I think where we've had the problem is not visitor parking, but because there's enough people living in the unit that have
Tenant parking.
more, yeah, permanent parking, so whatever the size is, if you have teenage kids or whatever, you might have 3 or 4 cars per unit instead of just 2.
Or a pool table in your garage instead of a car, and then you're parking in the driveway, and then you're parking on 27th West.
Yeah. Can I ask the council, how would you feel about if we changed the clubhouse and pool area and added a significant amount of parking and just did some other, whether it's a basketball court or some different things like that? What would be your thoughts on that?
Well, my question would be for you, as somebody who's going to market those units, I mean, is there a demand for the clubhouse and the pool? And if that's part of your marketing, I wouldn't want you to take those away. So.
Yeah. On all of the other projects, we're just doing one out in Sandy that was approved. We just got one in Taylorsville. We finished 2 or 3 in Riverton. We've never, the first one we did in Midvale did have a small clubhouse and pool. All of the newer projects we have do not have a pool and clubhouse because the HOAs don't like the extra burden of keeping up the pool and the clubhouse. There'll always be a few, but by and large they don't. We were trying to follow the counsel of the staff and trying to meet the minimum number of amenities that are required. But typically, we've done one in probably 15 or 20 projects. So not very often.
So as part of your portfolio, you typically don't do it?
We do not do it.
Okay.
And I think if you look at a lot of them, they don't, because the biggest complaint you get in projects like this is the HOA fees are too high. So we try to keep those down.
Yeah, and I think from my standpoint, as far as wanting, like say an active senior, rather than the clubhouse and the pool, I would like to see walking paths.
Exactly, and that's what we try and concentrate, or even some barbecue pits and gazebos and different things like that where people can get together with playgrounds and different things like that and have open green space where people can walk throughout the project. I agree, and that's what we'd love to do.
Oh, I just want to say thank you. Earlier you mentioned about trying to make a road a little bit bigger, and I appreciate that. That's my concern. Try to get away from HOA as much as you can. You know, make a road a bit bigger and not a tiny one. People they park on the road, they're not pretty good. Also, they don't have a group. The same thing with my cars over there. I'm concerned about the parking and 2700 West is the main road in our city. Is traffic back and forth very steady and very good. There, we're concerned about people going to park on 2700 West, and that's not very good for us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Most of the questions answered then, and comments. Certainly this location, I think, is a great location with it being close to 4700 South I-215. It, I think, has great possibilities. But I think after hearing the discussion and the comments, I lean more towards the more parking, less clubhouse, no clubhouse.
Would it be okay, would you recommend if we postpone this till the next meeting and we redo the site plan and we eliminate the clubhouse and add more parking and let you look at that? Would that be okay?
Parking and walking.
Parking and walking.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Now,
would be comfortable changing the general plan or the rezone or anything until a plan that everybody's comfortable with is in place.
The question I would have for staff, would something like that need to go back to the planning commission, or would they just, would you act on our recommendations without going to the planning commission?
Yeah, no, you have the authority as the council to do that at this point because it's been through the planning commission for a recommendation. You don't need to send this entire.
Because I don't want to have to make them do that.
Yeah, unless you would like to as a council, there's no legal requirement to do that.
Okay,
You
great.
can handle that.
Okay, thank you.
so now, question for you, sir, is the timing on this. How soon could you have that ready?
We could have it resubmitted within a week and a half, 2 weeks.
2 weeks be fine. Is that reasonable then for you, 2
It
weeks?
will, we'll have to read it, it is. So can I just clarify if I can a little bit? Are we okay if we keep the street widths the way they are and keep it private? We'll eliminate the clubhouse and add maybe another gazebo or some other amenity, but we'll provide more parking and more open walking paths as we kind of configure that. Would that, am I understanding some of your concerns correctly on that?
I'd like to make a comment to that,
Okay.
sir, and this is hopefully for your benefit as well as ours. We never know how the vote's gonna come out, right?
Right.
You need 4 of us. So you don't need a consensus. My thoughts on this project were, well, we worked hard and took a lot of flack to create RE zoning, which is your default application from agricultural zoning. And then we created some exceptions, so we're not trying to be pig-headed or tie people in unnecessarily. And this property meets those exceptions, but for me, it's got to be something special. I mean, this is nice, but I wouldn't have voted for it because I don't think it's special enough to give up RE zoning or agricultural property there for that matter for this product. Now, I don't want to be the developer and I don't want to lead you astray and say if you do this and this and this, then it'll pass, or that even I will vote for it. I don't know that yet until I see it. And I want to be fair with you that way.
And I appreciate that, I do. Are there other concerns that we should know about now before we revisit the site plan?
I'm just want to let you know that we always want to work with you and willing to do something with that area, make something happen there. But however, you mentioned earlier about the road, personally, I'm concerned about the road. It's too narrow, that's not very good because sometimes we have a fire or something and fire truck going there and they have no room to move around that, not very good because sometimes people can park a car in front of their house or truck cannot go in there, and I'm very concerned.
Okay, thank you. Anything else that we should try and look at as we're revisiting the site plan?
I'd like to make one more comment.
Okay.
I said this to developers before, and I mean, my thought, if I'm standing in your shoes, is how am I going to come up with something that meets everybody's concerns? And I don't think you should try, frankly.
No,
I think you should just give us your best shot, give us your best product, and if it's good enough for 4 of us, it'll be approved. But I don't think you should, it's like the joke of a committee creating an elephant, right? It's like, we've got to have this, we've got to have that, and then pretty soon, you're
Yes.
building something you don't want to build, and we
Exactly,
might
and
not
we're-
approve it
we're-
anyway.
yeah,
So just
certainly.
give us your best product, and we'll see if it sells through.
Well, I appreciate all your comments, and that's what we're trying to get, and we'll certainly revisit it and come back to you here, get something turned in a couple of weeks, and revisit that with you here if we can at your next meeting. So appreciate your time, and we'll take those suggestions and incorporate those into a new site plan.
And I think it's appropriate to say that staff will work closely with you, and they're pretty good at helping decipher the council.
I don't always
Interpret.
predict what we're going to.
They don't
Steve
predict.
and the staff have been great, so
Yeah.
we'll certainly talk to them and work with them.
Okay,
Okay,
very good.
thank you.
Thank you. With that then, I think we need a motion, and we need to do it on each of the 3 items.
The public hearing is still open.
Well, yeah, but. So is there anyone else who are here to speak on that? There were no hands, so, we actually have a taker. You've excited him. I don't know which way, but.
Just a comment, Arlo Springer, 2998 West Alice Way. Hearing the discussion about fire trucks coming in and roadsides, I actually have friends that live in the Seattle area, and they live in a very, very large development, probably similar to this, and they have no option of bringing in fire trucks. So what they have is sprinklers in every unit, ceiling sprinklers. So just another option that might be considered.
Just as a confirmation, Ms. Cottle, is that these are sufficient to handle fire trucks, right? Within the,
Yes, even as drawn right now, they would handle our, they will handle our.
just want to make sure of that. So, okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion and come back to the council.
Mayor, I would move that we table application GPZ-1-2017 for table or postpone? Would you
Continue.
Continue? Okay. Thank you. I would move that we continue application GPZ-1-2017 to a time,
We have to do each one, it's one by one.
okay.
He's okay. So far. Keep going.
Would, okay, so I'll keep adding.
Yes. Well, no.
Which will include ordinances
Oh, no,
17.
No, you can stop there. You
Just the one.
To continue it.
Continue it to, is there a time certain that we need to?
I was just gonna make that suggestion that you could do it either way. You don't have to give a date certain, or you could set a date certain and require us to stick to that. So it's completely at your discretion, sir.
I think we'll leave it open to just until they can come back with a more acceptable plan.
Second?
Properly before us. Any further discussion? To our city recorder then for the vote.
Councilman Norfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Vincent,
Yes.
Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion for continuance passes unanimously.
You can tell we don't do continuances very often.
Yeah. Okay, and that was ordinance 17-1, or excuse me, 31. And so now we go to ordinance 17-32.
Mayor, I move for continuance of ordinance 17-32 to a date to be determined.
Second.
Properly before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Christensen?
Aye.
Councilman Norfelt?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion for continuance passes unanimously.
Okay, next we go to resolution 17-146.
Mayor, move to continue resolution 17146.
Second.
Properly before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Norfelt?
Yes.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion for continuance passes unanimously.
Okay, next we go to item application ZT-3-2017, filed by Red Boy Incorporated. This is a zone text change to amend the alcohol establishment spacing standards and reflect the same requirements set forth in the Utah State Code. The state made a change in their last legislative session. Traditionally, we have followed generally that code. I think this was for restaurants specifically to reduce the distance to, was it 200 feet? I believe I get that back up here. And, restaurants may not be located within 300 feet of a community location. Those were what? Schools, churches, parks, public playgrounds, libraries. And then by ordinary pedestrian travel, then 200 feet measured in a straight line, I believe, from the front door. So this would change it to that requirement. The distance was larger before for restaurants. This would reduce that distance. So that is the issue before us, to match state regulations with that information. Then, with that introduction, we'll open our public input portion. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Yes, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Sandy Mejia. I was the one.
Yes.
I would just like for the state basically to, or not the state, I'm sorry, for West Valley to meet the requirements for the DVC. Me and my husband are the applicants. That was it. Thank you. Any questions, Marty?
I did have one question. They mentioned in our study meeting that to meet the actual distance, you were going to have to move the door.
Yes.
So to what location are you moving the door?
So basically the door will be in the front. So it's it'll be towards the street.
So it will be on the same side but towards the street? So it'll be on the...
No, around the corner. So the door is like, do you guys know the building?
Mhm.
Shopko. So the door is towards Village Inn. I think it's called Village Inn, the restaurant. So it'll be around the corner. So it'll be behind the school. Like the school's on the other side.
So will the entrance actually be facing 35th South?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I just wondered if it was just moving to the other
Yeah,
corner.
it will be moved, yes. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else here to speak to this? Seeing no one else, then we'll close the public hearing portion, bring it back to the council.
I have a question for staff.
Yes.
Just want to make sure I'm understanding this right, Nicole. We are not, in the new ordinance, establishing any distances at all. We're just saying we will follow whatever state law happens to be. So if they make it greater, they make it smaller, we're in line with them all the time.
That's right.
So if they made it 10 feet next year, we're 10 feet. If they made it 1,000 feet, we're 1,000 feet. We adopt this ordinance.
Sure. Which by virtue of reality we would be anyway, because they would preempt us on that. It would be
If they-
sufficient. Under the alcohol, yeah, so if the state makes those changes, we're thereby governed just because of preemption anyway. But yes, the way that you suggested it to me and the way that we've written it is so that we would mirror that.
So we can't have a more stringent standard anyway?
You can as a city on one segment of that, and that is beer. Yes. So beer regulations, the city could decide to go in a more stringent way. But on the alcohol, you can't.
So this, I mean, if we don't pass this statute, we're gonna have to pass some different statute that comes in line with the actual fee that the state has set forth, because our statute is now more restrictive than the state statute.
So maybe I should just have Jody come up so that I don't cause problems. Let's do that. I think I know what I'm talking about, but I might not be right on, sir.
Hey, Jody Knapp with Planning and Zoning. Yeah, it was, so the spacing here is for alcohol establishments, which are, they include the sale, manufacture, and distribution of alcoholic beverages for retail and wholesale, and it excludes off-premise beer. And so it's my understanding that the city could impose different spacing requirements that are stricter than the state. So that's why, so currently ours are stricter, and we're changing it so that we just meet the state regulations.
So now we'll also have our city attorney chime in because I asked him to be prepared for this question. I should have just gone straight to him.
Sorry.
So we'll have him chime in because I asked him to be ready for this.
That's our opinion. We agree with Ms. Knapp that's the.
I'm glad I called in the backup.
So we could, if we don't change the ordinance, it stays as it is, which is, has in it greater distances than the current state code.
Correct.
In this case, there is a request from one restaurant owner for this change. That's what precipitated this. How will this affect other areas? Is this something that we're going to see a significant increase in restaurants closer to churches and schools, etc.?
I mean, it does change the regulations, but again, it's just for community locations, so it's not to residential. It's more to the larger churches, schools, public parks. Historically, we have met the state requirements, it's just we were unaware of the change at the time, and then this restaurant brought it to our attention. So again, typically our intent is to match the state code. It's just in this instance, we lagged behind a little bit.
Mayor, to your question, this, yes, would affect all of the future restaurants that would come and existing restaurants. So, and we have many of those. Sorry, I'm even getting this wrong. Alcohol establishments. Yes. So to answer your question, this would cover all of those that exist, sir.
Mitchell, I'm sorry, Jody, one question, you don't mind you. So the current state code right now, this restaurant owner, they met all the current state code. They were conforming here, is that right?
Yes, they do have to relocate their door, as I mentioned before, because
Okay.
the spacing is measured from the primary entrance of the building.
Uh-huh.
And so then they would be in compliance with the state.
Okay.
Just hearing you talk, Jody, brings questions to my mind. So if it's their primary entrance, they could have a primary entrance, great big, this is where you come in, but we can have a little door around the back that's just 10 feet away from the school.
So it says it's measured from the nearest entrance of the
Nearest
proposed
entrance,
outlet.
so
Yeah.
it's not
So it's not primary, yeah, nearest entrance. And then, but they could have an exit out the building, it's just as
So we're
entrance.
going to get back to class.
Any further questions for Jody? Okay, thank you. Oh, let's see. So, had I closed the public portion yet?
No.
Okay, so anyone else to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion, bring it back to the council.
Mayor, just a couple of comments. Number one, I'm all for being in line with what state regulations are, so there's no confusion. Number two, I don't think there's a real danger to our students with a restaurant that serves a drink. I just don't see that as being a danger. And then the third thing is this particular restaurant has been an eyesore for a number of years, attracts homeless people that camp around it, and so I think seeing something happen there that's going to be positive for the area, I think is a good thing, and for that reason, I would support changing the ordinance.
My comments are pretty much in line with Councilman Vincent's, a little bit more limited. I just think that it's good for our business community to not be more restrictive than the state. And with that said, I'll move for approval of ordinance 17-33.
Second.
Okay, it's properly before us. Given that I actually went to the legislature to speak against their proposal, and since I'm somewhat consistent, not always, I'm concerned about our making the change. Having worked with MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, with Art Brown and others on this issue, there are a lot of concerns, and I hate to see us making changes. The legislature, I think, did it for my personal opinion, the wrong reasons. So I'm not in favor of making the change. I'd like to see us be more restrictive, although there is the issue, and it's a very real one that you brought up, Councilman Vincent, on that location. But still, I always err here on the side of great caution to keep those as far away as possible. So. With that, any other comments? Seeing none, we'll go to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilman Hume?
Aye.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Nordfeld?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow?
No.
Motion passes by majority.
Thank you. Next, we're on our agenda is Resolution 17-147. This is to authorize the city to enter into a master tax exempt lease purchase agreement with U.S. Bancorp. This is for the replacement of desktop and laptop computers used by the police department. I think we replace approximately 1/4 of our computers each year, even though 4 years is a long time in computers. We're assured that all compatibility remains the same, software remains the same, so we shouldn't have any problems there. And so this particular item will authorize us obtaining the funds to purchase it. And in just a moment, we'll follow that up with the actual purchase agreement. But Resolution 17-147 is for that purpose. Oh, and I ought to mention the cost. If I get down here to it. $127,155, thank you, and some pennies. And with that, to the council.
Mayor, I move for approval of Resolution 17-147.
Second?
Properly before us, any further discussion? Seeing none, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Nordfeld?
Yes.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So next, we have Resolution 17-148. This is the actual purchase. You'll notice the amount for it is a little bit less, the difference being the financing cost. So the actual purchase will be $121,422. The difference between that and the previous amount are part of the lease agreement to buy that over time, which fits in better with our budgeting process. With that introduction then, for those same computers, to the council.
Mayor, move for approval of Resolution 17-148.
Second.
Properly before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Nordfeld?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Next, we have Resolution 17-147. This is awarding of a contract in relationship to Fire Station 71, 72, 76. 76 will be a new one. Let's see, it's 72 with it we're adding to, and 71 we have to replace.
72 we demolished.
72 we demolished, 71 we're adding to. Okay, there we go. I gotta get it right. Numbers have always befuddled me, so. So we'll build 2 brand new stations and add to and remodel a 3rd one. So this contract is for $7,190,000. Although we have previously bonded for an amount for most of that, there will be some work on this to try and make sure we stay within budget, some minor modifications from our study session, and but there will be some additional funds beyond the source of bonding that we will have to use to get these built. With that introduction then, to the council.
Move for approval of Resolution 17-149.
Second?
Properly before us, any further comments?
Just make a comment, Mayor, that if we look at the other bids, it almost looks like we're getting a bargain. So hopefully we have a responsible builder, and he can come in under budget on this.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, to our city recorder.
Councilman Nordfeld?
Yes.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we have Resolution 17-150. This is a change order to the contract to Miller Paving for the Tess Avenue Sidewalk Project. This is an ongoing project that was critical to one of our local schools to make sure we got sidewalks established. Students this is an elementary school, they were walking to school in the street in the winter and couldn't have that. Anyway, a large project, this is a change order. This particular change order was for the amount of $46,475 to take care of some poor subgrade and deteriorated condition of the existing asphalt. That is the issue before us to the council.
I move for approval, resolution 17-150.
Second.
Property before us, any further discussion? Seeing none, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we go to our consent agenda. We have 3 items there, 3 resolutions. Resolution 17-51, public sidewalk lighting utility easement, 17-152, a delay agreement, and 17-153, a right-of-way easement for Questar Gas near Stonebridge Golf Course. And so those are the 3 items. Then to the council.
Mayor, move for approval of the 3 consent agenda items.
Second?
Properly before us, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll turn to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Nordfelt?
Yes.
Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Hune?
Aye.
Councilman Bueller?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang?
Yes.
Councilman Vincent?
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That completes our regularly scheduled agenda. Any final comments from the council members? We don't have an executive session, so,
Motion to adjourn.
okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. We're adjourned. Passes unanimously.
We called to order the Westwood City Redevelopment Agency meeting tonight, and roll call, we have a full quorum tonight, and we have one resolution, 17-11, and I will turn it over to Acting City Manager Nico Cotto tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution authorizing the agency to enter into a purchase agreement between the RDA and Zions First National Bank here in the Fairborn Station City Center area. This purchase was slated with regards to the assemblage of property for the public safety building and the redevelopment of that area. And the funding for that property was included in the economic development bond that was handled by the RDA and the council earlier this year.
Thank you, Mr. Cotto, and we'll turn this over to the council for a motion or discussion or action.
Sometimes when you buy a building, they leave things behind. Maybe, we ought to check carefully before we demolish it and see if there's certain items left behind perhaps involved. But I'll move for approval of resolution 17-11.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. So any further discussion about this one? None. And we'll turn it over to the city recorder.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Aye.
Mr. Bigelow?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Nordfelt?
Yes.
And Chairman Hune?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we have one more motion for tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.